and you can jump us into that and do what we need to do.
All right, here we go. How you doing, everybody? This is Dennis Michelson. Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? Well, you get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method. That's just a smarter way of using statistics because we let the statistics guide us to the answer. And fortunately or fortunately, a lot of times those statistics will lead to about 5 more questions as well. And joining me as he does each and every week, well, 3 times a week now when you count the Matchup Lab over at the Sports Affiliation in conjunction with our shows here at Science of Fantasy Football. It is the professor of fantasy football. He's a real professor too, folks. It's John Bush. John,
Yeah.
week 3
Yeah.
is underway.
To me, in my seasonal schedule, that means that I'm getting close to gathering enough data from this year to start speculating on defense against position and efficiency and starting to get a feel for home away splits and things. So it's just this early part of the season. Things are still yet to be determined. And given the injuries, and we always talk about injuries that shuffles the deck. The deck is definitely shuffled this week
Oh,
with
boy.
the quarterbacks and some stuff, going on, players, and so it's always good. It's if you've never been through a season before, this is not unusual. And if you haven't looked back, if you haven't played for a long time, this can be extra stressful. And part of our draft strategy, at least our better than zero, and I call it our because I fully support it and use it, within reason. I don't use anything without some thinking, but it's a
Yes.
good guidepost, Dennis, and you brought me on board on that. We specifically try to load our rosters for the running backs and still have a little bit of flexibility on tight ends, quarterbacks, and wide receivers. But we're hedging our bets on running backs being a more of an issue. And this year it's been seen, and it's just because it's the here and now. The quarterbacks seem to be an issue, and we usually draft 2. I've always draft 2 in FFPC leagues, and 2 tight ends. In fact, Dennis, I'm grabbing 3 if I'm having injury. Like my Kittle teams, I'm finding I'm acquiring 2 others to try to string together. In other words, there wasn't the perfect replacement for Kittle, right? Tongas in San Francisco is not the perfect, right?
No.
He has potential, but there are others that have been left on the board. Otten, Schultz, Strange is pretty much gone, but a few others I'm looking at as well, and just hoping I draft 2 that can, in conjunction with our DAPS, we can make, at least get 10, 12 points, at least get that near that average, so we're not hurting. I'm not expecting to win the tight end position with somebody like Kittle out or Goddard or whoever, Kraft, whoever's going to be out. It's not like, well, I'll just find this one off the bench and they'll replace them. They're not going to replace them,
No.
Dennis.
No.
But if you can just muddle through until they're back, and so that's what streaming to me under an injury situation allows us to do. But we are all in on getting the quarterback, running backs taken care of. So I've got a lot of different shares of some of these second place RBs, not all of them. Madison and one in Minnesota, I couldn't draft both. I wanted
No.
to draft, I
Yep.
couldn't. They were
No.
too close together.
Correct.
But other ones, I was able to draft both, or a piece, right? With Kamara, I've got some Miller and Neal, right?
Right.
With Jacksonville, I've got some Rootin' Tootin'. I hope he gets some points there. Chicago, I've got the second guy and that kind of thing. Buffalo, I'm ready if Cook ever goes down. I've got Ray
Yep.
Davis and
Yep.
maybe it's Ty Johnson. I don't know. We debated that, and still I'm not convinced that Ty's getting a run because Cook is healthy. I think Ray Davis is the Cook replacement. At least that
Yeah.
was my
I agree.
thinking.
Yep.
And so he's not going to have a role unless Cook is injured or they're trying to save him. And so I'm not advocating throwing away. So that's where I feel we're at, Dennis. And of course, quarterbacks, the same kind of thing. If you didn't take an elite quarterback, our strategy is take two that you could string together. And Dak and Love or Goff and Love have been some of those pairings that I've been successful with in the first 2 weeks, Dennis. So we're covering the base because we came into the draft prepared. We didn't know who was going to get
Yes.
injured, but prepared. And folks, if you're not prepared and you just catching us, then it's you need to pay attention off season because we'll start moving you again towards getting ready for that. And if you've listened to us, you've probably already were prepared. At least I hope so. Why are you listening if you're not, taking some of our strategy? We hadn't told you exactly, here's the exact ones to take, but it's the concept we're selling, right? The better than zero is this concept, right? It's not exactly the players lined up and here's the ducks, but the concept is survives. Every year so far I've been doing it, the concept has been working for me, not necessarily my choices of players, because sometimes as you say, you can't get Madison in Minnesota. You just couldn't. I mean, sometimes the board and the league doesn't let you use that, so you go and do another situation.
Yeah. And you were, first of all, you were very correct to call it our strategy because better than zero wouldn't exist without the work that we've done
Yes,
together. It's was it my idea
I
mainly
think it
of
was.
how to distill this down? Yes, it was, but it doesn't
Dennis,
exist.
as you before you get on your soliloquy there, what I think I made you do was put it down
Correct.
in paper because you
Yes.
have this tendency to do stuff and it's like I know you're busy. You've got a lot to say in your life and you're a busy man, you have a job, and I mean, but like the probability and opportunity index, the same thing. Dennis has been doing this stuff, but he hadn't taken the time to put it down and make it a conceptual thing that can be passed on, right? So you are
Yes.
passing on your generational knowledge, Dennis. And that's where I mean, think about it. You've been a lone wolf for in fantasy, and now you and I got
Long time.
together. We're
Yes.
forming our data pack, and we're always looking for sharp folks to, hey, join the pack. Come on, and or some intern. Come on now, let's do it. But I just wanted to say that it wasn't like you were doing a version of this before you and I even got together. It was just forming, but I think I think our teaming up has allowed more clarity and
Yes.
visualization of the concept. It comes to the forefront now.
Anytime you have to explain your strategy to
Yes.
another smart player and take feedback on it. Like,
Mhm.
first of all, if you, this is part of the scientific method, okay? You develop tools, you develop ideas, but when it comes to testing them, they need to be tested by more than just you as a scientist. And, when I developed a tool in weather forecasting for San Francisco, I got it out to the masses of other forecasters to test this theory because I wanted some independent feedback of my ideas. And it just so happened I stumbled across having the information that I sent to someone else get in the hands of a forecaster who had developed a forecasting technique for San Francisco in the late 40s, early 50s. So I had another generational talent that I could then have look at my stuff and who knew the weather problem and could tell me yes or no, where what do I need to do to improve this? What's the next step? And that's been the big key here working with you, Professor, is you force me to commit to putting it to paper, to explain it to you, if nobody else. And when you do that with a scientific brain, you're forced to refine that strategy and really dissect, why am I doing this? And with the opportunity index, that's been a classic example of that. I've been using that concept, but I never put it down into something that I could explain. It was just something I did. And when you forced me to think in terms of betting on this, it really clarified why I do what I do when it comes to rookie running backs. And I use a little bit of that throw all the spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks method because I'm not the best at evaluating talent, but I am pretty good at finding opportunity. That's the one thing that I've been pretty good at. And, you know, 3 weeks in, some would say, oh, that's not enough data. No, I think you start to get an idea on about 60 to 70% of the players after just 3 weeks. I know, was I right or was I wrong about this backfield? Was I right or was I wrong about this additional player? And some, the answer is no, I'm not certain yet. Others are yes, I was right. And others are, phew, man, I missed that call. But you should also understand why you missed a call. Classic example. He's already got 3 games in now. Keon Coleman was a guy that I thought could see a big year 2 improvement. And he is. He's a better football player than he was last year as a rookie. But here's the problem. He's not fitting into that offense as a needed component every week. He's going to be a game scripted guy. And if you can figure out the game scripts, great. If he's going to get into a game that's going to be a shootout, an absolute shootout, where they are not necessarily the best team on the field, the Buffalo game, the Buffalo Baltimore game was a classic example where I think those two teams are so close in talent, both on the offensive, well, mainly on the offensive side of the ball. I don't think much of either of their defenses right now, especially with the injuries that Buffalo has got already on the defensive line. But when you get into a game where the other team can score 40, then Keon Coleman's going to be a value. But that's not going to happen often enough to make him a great value. And right now, nobody of those wide receivers are a guy that I would like. Now, having said that, I'm right about Dalton Kincaid. I expected him to have a better year, and he's having a decent year. And James Cook, I was like, nope, this touchdown regression, even if he drops a few touchdowns, he's still a lock where he's being drafted. I just was a little bit worried about the holdout. Those holdout guys don't always do well from a physical standpoint when they get into the season. And my feeling was they're going to lean on this guy. And if anything bad happens, I want to have Ray Davis. I still feel that way. I think I made the right decision about Ray Davis. I want him on as many rosters sitting there as a possibility later in the season, because Cook will miss a game or two at the very least. And if something else happens to him, it knocks him out long term, I think Ray Davis is about 80% of what James Cook is value wise on a weekly basis. So I'll take that bet where he was being drafted. In other backfields, I was honest to say, I'm not sure where the volume's going. And one was very ironic because it was Tampa Bay. Last year was taking Rachaad White early in the drafts. And then I was backing him up. Every single share was backed up with Bucky Irving. This year, I've got a little bit less of Bucky Irving because I thought he was being drafted a little bit too early. But on the teams that I grabbed Bucky Irving, I have Rachaad White. I drafted him basically. I drafted Irving a little bit earlier than I got White last year. And I'm drafting White right where I got Bucky Irving last year. And I feel good about having both ends of a backfield that is going to score a lot of points. I'm happy with that, which is why I don't have both halves of the Cleveland backfield, because I'm not sure how many points they were going to score. And New England, yeah, I got some Stevenson and Travion Henderson because I wasn't sure how that was going to work out. Henderson, I think, is the better football player, but Stevenson's been doing this for a lot longer. And if, they don't trust, coaches don't trust rookies. That's part of why the better than zero works. But as the season goes on, they start trusting those rookies more. Last year, it happened with Tracy in New York with the Giants, where every time he got part-time work, he looked better. And now we're seeing the same thing happen in a season later with Scatabo. Is Scatabo a better player than Tracy? Maybe. And when he got an opportunity, he performed better than Tracy has this year. So now he might get some more use this week. But you should have a pretty good idea on where the strategies worked, where they didn't. Now, that doesn't mean your team's doomed if you drafted poorly. Don't panic. Even if you go 0-3 to start the season. I had two teams last year, Professor, two dynasty teams that went 0-4 starts. Both came back to win the championships. 2 years ago, I had a team that went 0-6. Started 0-6. Still won the championship. I won the next 7 weeks. Made it into the playoffs and then rolled through the playoffs. So never panic. The season's not over. You just need to make the playoffs. That's all you need to do. And don't give up on those rookie running backs. They will be better by week 6 to 8 than they were in weeks 1 through 4.
I agree. It's you, like I said, you never know quite what's going on. And I'll tell you what, on the waiver wire is to anticipate. And
Yes.
so Chris Brooks is a dollar play for me at FFPC.
Oh, yeah.
If I can find a spot right? So I'm trading one backup running back for him just because Lloyd is on IR, and he might be, he's out there in a few of my leagues. He might be a dollar play down the road too, that kind of thing. Uh, so given the landscape, you just got to stay on top of it. And seeing that, let's see, Jacobs, the is that who we're trying to cover for Green Bay?
Yep, that's
Yeah,
correct.
he was having some injury issues or designations. So I said, well,
Yep.
let's throw a buck. And Dennis and I talked about that. And a few places I've got him scheduled to be, drafted at a dollar. Nobody's talking, and maybe it's I lose that, but I'm only betting a dollar.
Yeah.
And people are saying Hunter Renfro was bad or Wicks was bad. Well, for a dollar, and if they're a couple weeks, I'm okay. I'll move on. I mean, it's with $1,000 fab, a dollar is basically zero. I mean,
Right.
basically. So I do churn. I do, pay attention if the main guy's having a little bit of tweaking on his injury, why not? And if the second or third guy is out there for a dollar and you've got room, again, I play where there's 10 on the bench. If I had five on the bench, you couldn't do that. And I put myself in a position that matches our better than zero pretty good having a deep bench. That
Yeah.
helps.
Yes.
So I play where FFPC, there's no trading. And you're saying you don't like to trade. It's not that I don't or do. It's that I see that others take advantage and can get a leg up over on me by basically thievery of somebody else's roster. And I
Yes.
mean, that doesn't help my cause if some cat's able to sweet talk some buffoons on the few that are there and he rapes them. Trade rape, they call it. It's a pretty harsh word, and it's probably, I shouldn't use that, but it's what it feels like, that they're just taking that, and it's bad. So it you know, it's that's why I don't like trading. So deep benches, I make moves, and they're probably most of the time not going to work. But I'm up the tree when the leaves shake, Dennis, in the weeds, because I do not want to stick my head in the weeds and get a crocodile bite me or something. So that's just another part of it, is staying on board. And I've got 40 leagues I'm saying grace over. And by the way, we hadn't talked about it, and it's just 2 weeks in, but our Superflex tournament, Dennis, the three of them, have you looked at where we're at on the
No,
three?
I have not.
Dennis, we're winning in two of the three. We're number one.
Woohoo! I love
But
it.
yeah, we're
Love it.
number eight in the other one though. But hey,
That's
if
okay. I'll
yeah,
take two out of
so
three any day.
yeah, so that's good. I don't know if it'll stay good, but right now is good. So I'll take any good news here. Uh, 24 out of about, let's see, how many do I have? 38. So if the playoffs were today, 24 out of 38. I'm greedy. I want all 38, but that's not where I'm at. But 24 is not bad. It could be better. I don't know what was that, 12 19ths or whatever it is. So I don't know the percentage, but it's it's about 60, a little bit better than 60%, 60, 70, and I want 90%. So
Yeah, and
it is what it is.
yeah, I set the bar pretty high. Okay,
Yes, you
so
do, Dennis, and it makes
I
me crazy.
I want to see 80% of my teams
See, I can't
make
do
make the
80% at
playoffs. I
FFPC.
want
That's incredible.
FFPC, that is tough. It is very, very tough to do. I want to have half of my teams make the Final Four, which is again, it's a huge, huge volume of success to have. And then I want 25% winners minimum. Okay. That if I can have that formula work out, I'm doing great. And the one thing I do know is that early in the season doesn't mean that much to me in fantasy football because my strategy, the concepts behind the better than zero are not to be the top point getting team for the season. It's to be more consistent week in, week out than every other team. And I'm really going to I traditionally pick up ground on people during the bye weeks. That's when my teams are at their best. When there's players missing, I'm better at making the decision over who to have in there. And I'm also good at being able to think ahead. Right now, for instance, I'll give you two teams right now where I'm already starting to think ahead. And this is where playing in Dynasty really pays off because these guys are already on my rosters in Dynasty. In redraft, even with big benches, I haven't made the move yet. But with Washington, if something happens to Bill, the guy they call Bill, if he gets hurt next, I want to have Donovan Edwards for my $1 hollers. He's not even on their active roster yet. But that's a guy to keep an eye on. And that's a guy that, let's say you lose somebody to the IR list this week in FPPC and they're gone for the season and you need to replace them. And there's nothing that looks
Okay, how do you spell
attractive.
that name?
Donovan Edwards.
Donovan.
Donovan Edwards. Keep an eye on him. He's a former University of Michigan running back. Got some decent
what team
size.
was that, Dennis? I'm writing
That's
my
with
note.
that's the Washington Commanders.
Okay.
He's on their practice squad right now. Okay, so that's a guy to keep an eye on. Another team that I'm watching is Seattle. So Charbonnet is doubtful this week.
That's right. That's right.
I wouldn't be ashamed of putting a $1 bid in for George Halani.
Oh yeah, I've actually been in my list.
So I've got Halani out there for a $1 holler in some of those leagues. Here's a crazy one for you.
Crazy.
But I'm keeping an eye on it. Not making the move yet, although I have added him in Dynasty. Pacheco, Hunt have been unexciting for Kansas City at running back. I expect better things from Pacheco this week. I think he's playing his way into form. I think he's playing his way into shape. But if he goes down, they just signed Clyde Edwards-Helaire to their practice squad. I've added him on a few dynasty teams where I had a roster space. Remember, even in Dynasty, I don't keep ordinary wide receivers on my roster for long because you can always find the 5-point guys on waivers, even in deep Dynasty. I can find a guy that can score 4 to 6 points sitting on waivers at wide receiver. I can't find him at running back. Running backs are that shopping list is lean, just like it is this year on FPPC. This has been a real lean year for running backs. People are getting smart. They're hoarding because they've seen what's happened in the past. Minnesota, Xavier Scott is the listed backup right now to Mason. But let's say Mason goes down this week. They signed Cam Akers to their practice squad. Is Scott better than Akers? Probably, because otherwise Akers would be on their active roster right now. But I think Akers will be elevated to the roster this weekend, or if not, maybe in the future, because without Aaron Jones, they need some more depth at running back. But these are the kinds of things that
So,
I'm always
Dennis,
searching
where
for.
does Brooks fit in the
Oh,
hierarchy of what you?
Brooks should be already rostered. Like he's beat out Emmanuel Wilson.
Okay.
But here's the thing: Jacobs is going to get heavy load. Okay,
Yes.
so Brooks only becomes worthy of playing time on your fantasy football roster if something happens to Jacobs. But Jacobs was questionable to start the week. So he's not 100% healthy. Nobody is by week 3 in the NFL. But he showed up on the questionable list. Now he's off the questionable list. But that's how you have to. You got to think not for week 3. I'm not looking for a week 3 replacement on the waiver wire running back. I'm looking for a week 8, a week 10 replacement.
Yeah.
And that's the way you have to think at running back. At wide receiver, you can usually go to the waiver wire and find somebody with a good matchup that is, maybe a Ray McLeod that you can pull off the waivers that week and stick him into your starting lineup. If you've drafted well, you don't have to worry about that at wide receiver. You're all set. I just have to worry about that running back depth. But boy, as you lose players, as the Austin Ecklers of the world go on IR and they're gone for the year, we don't have IR slots in FPPC. So a guy like Joe Burrow, you have to decide, is there any chance he could come back for the fantasy football playoffs, or is he just a wasted roster spot? And the answer might be different on one team versus another. But, it all depends on what the rest of the team looks like. Do I need a fill in this week? If so, I'm going to take a couple of shots because and Burrow's gone. But that's the way you got to think. You cannot think from week to week in fantasy football and have great success. You need to think, who is the next man up if something happens?
Gotcha.
And that's been the strategy. The ironic part of the better than zero strategy, though, Professor,
Yeah.
is it's heavy to quarterbacks. Okay.
Gotcha.
But how about this week? In 2 different leagues that I'm playing, my quarterbacks in a 1 quarterback league, I felt pretty good with Jaden Daniels and Justin Fields.
Right.
Both out this week. And in another team, I had JJ McCarthy. Another team, I had Brock Purdy. So I've had a lot of the quarterback injuries, but finding the fill-in is a lot easier in FPPC at quarterback than it is in some of these dynasty leagues. So I'm pretty much a step ahead because you can bid big on a quarterback that's out there and make sure you land him on your roster. But it's been a little heavier injuries, I think, at quarterback this year than usual.
I agree. So Dennis, changing the subject, I did a little research this morning. I got my wide receivers and I started looking at age, and this is my database from 2000, 2024, and was just, looking around, and the first up here at the top where the pointer is, this is year sectors here, and we're in 2020 to 2024. The average of all wide receivers in the database, 1,187 entries, is 76.5. This is end of the season, and that is the lowest we've seen in the 25 years, the block, which is interesting because the number of wide receivers is the lowest. So that's very intriguing a little bit. I wouldn't have predicted that the NFL would have less wide receivers, uh, you know, and I
So,
probably
so
should do counts per year. I probably
well,
should make it per year, and I
well,
hadn't done that yet.
here's an interesting thing how defenses have reacted in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
So we were seeing a lot of teams that had three wide receiver sets as their main go-to formation.
right,
And then teams started shutting that deep ball down
right.
by playing two safeties. So the natural progression for NFL teams was okay, if you're going to play your safeties too deep zone, I'm going to start running the ball more and I'm going to start throwing short passes more. Look at
Right.
what we saw with Buffalo over the on Thursday Night Football. They were using 3 and 4 tight end sets. I
Right.
mean, so it makes sense that wide receivers are the missing link here. That they're the ones that are dropping. That's very interesting, though.
Yeah, and like I said, I should maybe I'll throw out the actual counts here and just do and I know there's a way to do this, but this is average fantasy points of the wide receivers in the groups here. And if I look across at the uh, the situation, so what I thought was interesting is in the last 4 years, look at the spiky young rookie early wide receivers, 86, and we've never seen anything like that
Wow.
in the years before. So it's really spiky. And look what's happened to the next group. It's the lowest, 24 to 26.
Wow.
Yeah, so I hadn't figured that out quite yet, but then it's back to 81, 93, and it dropped to 62 at uh, 37. So it looks like we have lost some of these really uh, longevity wide receivers in the last 4 or 5 years. The Fitzgeralds and stuff, they're not
Yeah.
hanging around anymore. Looks like they're peaking. So if you look at this, and again, people might look down, but I look across, and
Yeah.
if you did, yeah, and if you did a graph, it looks like that, Dennis, and it almost peaks early, drops, and then builds again, and then drops. And that's, if you look at that versus the two, so if you did the years before, and you look and you can see that it's this is the years before in blue, and probably should change the color, but you can see that's the typical survivors are doing really good. So the
Yeah.
older types, but Dennis, be aware, the last 4 years that trend's going away. So I wanted
Interesting.
us to be aware of that trend a little bit. I need to explore more, folks. This is me grabbing the pivot table in about 10 or 15 minutes. And that's not how you do. You got to think, and you go in and you look and you think again. But I did want to, you know, the, I'm kind of falling into the track of each week trying to have a little bit of fresh data that we haven't seen before, Dennis. And since I don't have any efficiency or the brand new DApps because we're too early, I thought I would look around at some of this. And if I have time, I could go in the running backs and the tight ends as well and the quarterbacks. But we need to study your MVP on the older guys, Dennis, in the last
Yes.
you because previous to that, it probably look at the difference, the gaps here, and that's these age gaps. So that's what this would be representative. That's 21 to 23, 24 to 26, 27 to 29, and so forth. So the the numbers are dropping, but the ones that are surviving, you know, 13 to 19 were really good. And we haven't, that those haven't been replaced, Dennis. So I'm not sure I know what that means yet. Is that people are retiring? I mean, there's more money. They don't need to stick around like Larry Fitzgerald to 37. You know, or just the crop is, you know, is spiking early and then going away. I'm not sure what that means. Or is that the teams are not taking, they're not rewarding the Larry Fitzgerald types, the long, you know, the Keenan Allen's one that comes that's still hanging around that's old.
Yes.
But he, you know, there's not many of them left anymore, is what this data would say. Are they just not being rewarded? Teams are not gambling, whereas maybe they used to gamble more. I don't know if something has happened in the league that I haven't heard anybody discussing any of this, and I know you're not surprised that I'm pointing
Yeah.
stuff out like that. So I'm not
So,
sure what this means, but I thought I'd let Dennis pattern think. That's a new word, Dennis. Pattern think.
what
Okay.
one of the things that comes right to mind on why these older guys are no longer a thing is so much money goes to the quarterbacks now.
Yeah.
And
Is that
if
taken
you are not on a
away?
if you're not on rookie quarterback, you know, contract,
Yeah.
there's only so much money. And we are seeing more money being spent on the defense as a whole than we probably were 10 years ago. I think teams are kind of investing their money there and they're willing to take a chance on these young guys
Mm-hmm.
and they're coming out pretty much ready to go. But this is interesting because it does sort of shadow the idea of, hey, you know, that first 5 years, you're valuable to us while you're on that rookie contract, or the first 3 or 4 years anyway. And boy, they're coming out early. Now, what'll be interesting to see is with so much NIL money being spent at the college level now, are we seeing differences to the ages? Are we seeing guys that are staying in college a year later to make their money at quarterback and running back? And are we going to see this a little bit different? Are they not spending the NIL money on wide receivers as much? Is that why wide receivers are coming out early? Those are all things that are going on behind the scenes that are probably forcing this data in the way it is. But that's a big enough jump that something is going on here.
Well,
And
I
it might,
just wanted to bring that up. And so, folks, this is not the end. And
no,
I just can't describe, if you're doing research, and I hope some that are listening want to do their own, this should inspire you, and this should help you during, you know, if you're bored or something. I don't know, people say, oh, I burned out or I'm grinding. I don't know what that means, because for me, when I quote grind, I find neat stuff like this, and I've got new questions and I want to get in and do extra work. You know, this drives me even more, and it's exciting because it's got new questions. And like I said, most of the shows now are just throwing people's opinions out, and they're not really giving you some questions or thinking about things that are bigger than this season. And I don't know how to stay ahead in fantasy if you're not looking at the big trends and questioning things. And the contract money, Dennis, we really need a database to track that
yes,
too.
yes,
This is not the first time you have thought in that way on contracts and explaining data, maybe have a part of what we're seeing based on how money is being distributed now, right? That's the cheese. And is it any surprise the mice are following the cheese? It's not. And so there's some secrets here, but I did want to share a little bit of that before we started talking about a couple of matchup games to talk about that we're going to cover on the podcast. But anyway, Dennis, next week I may have some the DApps, and if I get energy, I'm going to update the DApps. And so if I do, I'll kind of highlight what was in 24 to
Oh,
what
yes.
is now. What we thought versus what it looks like now, kind of thing. And like I said, my initial thinking is the extremes are not going to change a lot, the best or the worst. I think we'll tend to see the mid going potentially in different directions more than the extremes. That has been what I've seen previously. I'm curious to see how it holds up this year on the DApps. And if I get a chance, I'll do the efficiency as well. So that might be the data, uh, this time. And I did send you this database, Dennis. So
Very
you
good.
have, and like I said, if you could take your MVP and add a column here, at least as far back as you got. I mean, that's probably off season work. But now, if you did that, what I have is the yearly rank, the sector the player was in at the end of the season, the percentile rank. So you're saying, why do you grab like, because it allows me to increase my N number, right? The sample size, if I put the lower ranked wide receivers at the end of the year, we're talking zero, basically the worst of the worst to the 24 percentile. They were pretty bad. Versus the best ones, right? The 100 to the 75th percentile. So we can then look at age versus the best at the end of the season and look at that trend. And that's different than if you throw all of it together because the data will be swamped out by some of the worst wide receivers in performance, not necessarily their talent, Dennis. I'm not that. So, and then here's the actual age. So you can do it age, and then I did a sector, age sector. And then here's something experience. If you're first year experience, I call you a rookie. Second year experience is R2 and so forth. So we could look at experience, number of games played, rushing data, yards and tight ends, and then reception yards, yards per reception tight ends, and fantasy points at the end of the season. And you could then add, if you wanted, real easy, fantasy points per game. And I just hadn't added that yet, but I will. I'll do fantasy points, you know, per game here. Uh, and so that might be silly me. So I can do that, and it would take just a second to do that. So I could have that data as well, Dennis. I just hadn't done that yet. And there's some other combinations. And then I could put all this together, Dennis, and do principal component analysis. I just hadn't done that in a while. And if I had your MVP, we could add that to all these variables I've never tested with MVP. So people said, where are you going the next few? Well, I just kind of told you, but first you need to build your database. So I think
Yes.
people in the downtime should gather their data, and you could add columns based on your draft tendencies. In other words, of all these players, what percentage did you take in your drafts last year? And if you did 4 or 5 years of that, you could then track your skills. Like, are you drafting older players too much? People talk about that. Are you drafting too many young rookies? How's that working for you? Are you a rookie whisperer? Or you suck?
Yes.
You could track that, folks. And I know you're saying, well, I got to wait 4 years. Yeah. You got to, you, it takes a while to make the gumbo, Dennis. You can't just, pull out a gumbo instant dinner and heat it up in 30 seconds and eat it. It's just, ugh. So you have to put some effort in. And but that effort means this is what you're doing in the off season. So when people talk about grinding, it's like, no, we got to think of another word other than grinding. Funding. We're finding fun. Funding. Okay. That to me is so exciting to do this kind of stuff, Dennis. So anyway, giving Dennis some more homework. I give him too much homework, but I would love to see MVP across all this, Dennis. Can you imagine how much fun? And I'll do the comms as well at some point. And then imagine having some Vegas data or DAPS for the season. Can you imagine all the other stuff we could put in, to measure strength of schedule, really measure strength of schedule? Anyway, that's just, I'm sharing. Anything you want to add before we go on to our matchups? Because we probably do need to move on.
Yeah. Here's the thing, folks. Nothing happens instant in science. And I'll give you another analogy in another world I work in now with agriculture. Some fruit trees that are cash crop fruit trees will not reach maturity to producing enough fruit until they're 3 or 4 years old. So that doesn't mean that the guy owning an orchard, doesn't plant new trees because he's not going to get anything from them. He plants new trees because he knows the old trees will eventually not be as productive and he needs a good mix. And that's the same with any data studies. Some of these data studies, just building the database is a process to itself. And once you have the database, and there's no reason during the off season, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back as far in time as I have data and compute MVP indexes for these players for these years, because having that data over a longer time span gives us an idea of whether we are seeing trends. Is this just an aberration that just happened? Or is there a reason for what we are seeing in the league? Is there a defensive change? Is there a contract issue change? What's driving this? Because usually in sports, you can find something. For instance, if you look at Major League Baseball statistics and you look back and you check pitching data from way back to the current time, you can pretty much figure out when they lowered the pitching mounds, because that had a reaction to what was going on the field. So all of these things are always interrelated, but you got to build a good database to take advantage of finding these things in fantasy football. Well, Professor, love this data, show and tell. You know me, it just inspires me to think about other ways of using that database.
And I've got the other positions and stuff, so I can really, so off season, I'm probably going to probably build a poster. I'm going to have more posters than we're going to be able to. I mean, Bob Lung's we're going to be out in the parking lot. He'll throw us out. I know, because we could bug him so much. You just have to step around our posters. So I know we don't want to get in too much trouble yet, Dennis. Wait till we got numbers, and it's hard to throw us out then. But right now we're still tiny and small and easily squashed. So like little bugs, we keep all of a sudden there's 100 of us and we're strong ants, right? Dennis, we build and we take over. Anyway, let me share uh let's see, get the view here. Let's see if I can do slide sorter. Here's normal. Okay, we can start out with that. So I'm getting all my metrics and everything together. So I'm ready to do can you see this, Dennis?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I just want to make sure. So we're going to save the extremes for the matchup episode 3, I guess, for the sports affiliation. We're going to do that right after this show. But we have time now to do a few, 2 or 3. I think we did 2 or 3 last week. So
Yeah,
if you
let's
want
do.
to pick some interesting ones, let me know
Yes.
and I'll go that way.
So let's pick some from down a little bit lower and then
Okay.
work our way up. So
Okay.
let's go with the decision making one for a lot
Mm-hmm.
of players here that I think is going to be a tight game as well. Let's look at San Francisco and Arizona. So that's game number
Sam,
13 on your list.
yeah. Okay. San Francisco and Arizona. And let's see, that is game 13. And it is 1.5 point. I haven't checked the latest spread yet. So, Dennis, I don't know. Here it is, San Francisco. So I haven't checked the latest spread, so I don't know. But I bet it's pretty close, but maybe not. I was going to pull up the latest odds real quick for us here. Odds and trends. Let's see, betting
I'm
odds.
I'm showing San Francisco at -2.5.
Let's see. So that is okay. I've got it at 2 and 45.5 on my,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, so basically we were about what we thought. So it wasn't too bad off.
No.
Again, this is just to give you a sense. Usually folks, between 45, 46 and 42 is kind of the average game. I've seen this over years. So this is an average kind of game. It's not an extreme defense or an extreme offense, which would be the higher and lower over unders things. Uh, the spread is San Francisco 23, Arizona 20. So there is some issues. Yeah, and San Francisco is at home. So again, the tradition, I believe, was like 2 points or for a home field advantage, and they're about giving that to San Francisco, right? Is I think we said it was 2. So not sure is 2. Oh, silly John. Tricks are for kids. 2 there. So close to that. So it's home field advantage. And if you look at last year's DAPS, it looks to me like you play the kickers and you play the running backs. So it seems to be a CMC. James Conner should lead that. In other words, the strength of both teams seems to be in this matchup, the running backs. So that might mean they're not going to have a shootout. But this is assuming they keep up. And if one team gets too far ahead, then the running backs are going to have to be pass catcher types. And actually, Connor can catch a few passes. Certainly, CMC can. So I'm not shying away from the running backs, Dennis. But Arizona's Harrison and the other Michael Wilson, extra tough. And
Yeah.
Murray is tough. And the tight end is tough. So it looks on paper, San Francisco has an advantage, a little bit easier time, the the quarterback and the tight end for boy, we need Kittle here. I am playing Tongass where I've got some Kittle shares on IR. And it is what it is. There's not a lot to pick up out there as your second tight end. So you got to hope he stumbles in or gets about 5 catches, Dennis, and get you your 10, 12 points. But that's what it looks like. As far as Arizona last year, their efficiency was 39, and that's more than double San Francisco's efficiency. So last year, Frisco was sucky, but look at the early 25 versus 24. Frisco has improved 20, and Arizona has declined a little bit. So it looks like Arizona hadn't really moved from last year, but San Francisco hasn't improved. And so there's not a lot of advantage. Both of them liked home away. They liked home last year, 24%.
Wow.
Yeah. So Frisco uh, loves to run. CMC plus 11% activity. Look at Arizona, complete flip of what the DAPs are given. Arizona wants to pass 23% more and rush 21% less. And that's not what Frisco's defense last year would give them. So I'm hoping we'll have the fresh DAPs, Dennis, and we'll have a clearer picture. But that's what we're given this year. I do have folks, and I'll post this, my metrics for, and of course I pulled the wrong one, John. I lost the game here. Where did I go? Oh, here it is. Frisco, and I really love CMC, but I do
Oh yeah.
think some high uncertainty compared to what I would, want, but it's 100, so it's the best of the week. Tongass at 31, so I'm gambling he gets a touchdown because I don't have anything else. Juwan Jennings, 57, Pearsall, 52. So they're tied wide receiver threes. And in Buffalo, I had 3 of them that were tied around 50s.
Oh yeah.
So that was a conundrum if Keenan Coleman, you had 3 of them and you knew all 3 weren't going to do something. So this almost implies, given the DAPs, that maybe one has a good day and the other one maybe has an average or below average day. It's hard to see both of them really being wide receiver 2-1 types this week. It looks like they're cutting each other here. Uh Frisco might be an okay defense, 62. If I got something better, not in, the kicker, Matt Jones, So, and in Arizona, love McBride, but his DAPs say be cautious. But I think he's going to get his 5 catches, and whether he gets a touchdown makes him a great week or an average week. I like Connor at 66. He's about an RB 2-3 type. And if Arizona gets behind and Connor can catch, I do worry about Benson because this is assuming the split between them continues to be a little bit favoring Connor. And last week, it was creeping up to Benson. So they could actually cut each other a little bit. Harrison is a wide receiver 3 type, high uncertainty. Not sure what we're going to get at all. I'm just the rankings, nothing inspires me, even though Vegas says it's close. I'm probably going with CMC leading San Francisco and winning a little bit. I'm probably taking them in the pick 'em, Dennis. I think I did select Frisco, but I'm not confident. But I got to choose. So right now I'm choosing Frisco, but not strong on it. But
So
Vegas is saying the same thing.
and I am strong on it. I think San Francisco wins this game. That's the one thing I feel pretty confident about. That home away split makes me feel even better about my pick. I'm I'm taking the under, but I wouldn't make the bet. It's gonna be too close to that over under. I don't see an advantage. The reason I think it might be under is both teams' strength will be the running game, which will eat some clock both ways. As far as players that are going to be highlighted here, there's a chance Purdy could be active. So
You
that's
think?
and
I
there's a
thought he
chance.
wouldn't.
There's a
Yeah.
chance that he could be active. I don't know if this is in their best interest to put him out there this week, though. Why take a chance when you could probably just dominate the game with your running attack this week? So we'll see how that plays out. But I right now, I wouldn't be shocked to see Purdy out there, but I don't really think it affects how I feel about the players either way. I wouldn't play him.
Mm-hmm.
CMC is the only guy I'm playing this
Yeah.
week from them. And for Arizona, you're playing McBride and you're playing Connor. That's it. Now, if they do get behind,
Yeah.
Benson was getting more of the passing down work. So
Yeah.
in some deep, deep leagues,
If you need some help this week,
I'm willing to go
yeah,
with
in a deep
Benson.
flex.
I'm willing to play both Connor and Benson if
Yeah.
I need to this
The
week.
Dennis, in the overall power rankings, Arizona has a little bit of
A little bit of
advantage
an
over.
edge.
Yeah,
Little
so
edge.
but San Francisco has improved early this season, efficiency wise. Is points scored, yards per second. They've done better so far this year versus last. Arizona is about the same. So I'm a little worried that this is my angst, Dennis. If
Yes,
you
I
ask
see that.
why that's my angst. When I usually think of the game, and again, folks, I'm not, this is a little early for me to think. I hate to make decisions too early. I will say all these psych books and things that I've read is the idea in a in certain environment, which I think fantasy football is, the best you can do is make decisions later. And I always wonder, and I mean, I like all the sports, the TSA folks, and they have their shows, but I worry Monday, Tuesday, Dennis, when you pop out your players, do you get locked in?
Yes.
Is it how hard is it for you to walk away from that? And so my pattern or my process is to wait till Sunday morning getting all the changes and especially things that I'm a little worried about, the health or just, the power rankings are worrying me, is to not be flexible, not have invested. And I think once you announce that on Twitter, you almost become invested. And I think these people, the noise
Yes.
makers, this is their season or this is the bust of the year. Even if you're the quote bust of the year, you talking about for every game, they're the bust. There's probably going to be some games where whoever you picked might have an okay or even a good game.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you blocked yourself, well, I'm not, they'll get mad at me if I play my bust. To me, is that your definition of bust? They are a bust every week. That is versus they're a bust overall, like 9 games bust, 8 games okay or good. Is that a bust? nobody ever proportions out what a bust is, Dennis. And that way you can always claim, well, he was a weak bust or, an average bust. I mean, if you throw some descriptors, it gets muddled and you don't look as bad as, yes, 17 weeks, they are a bust every week. That's bold. If you want to be bold for fantasy receipts, say that.
Well, if you want to look at the data in a little bit different way. So this year, I'm really keeping track of what I call spike weeks. And
Yes.
for a running back, that's over 15 points. For a quarterback, it's over 20. And, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends all share the same number because I have to make a decision on flex weeks. So,
Right.
or flex plays in the lineup. So if you look at the entire landscape of players that qualified to hit my ratings board this week in fantasy football, it was 161 players total. Okay.
Yep.
The number of players that have 9 or more spike weeks in their last 10 games played, these are last 10 full games played, there's 6. If you look at 8 or more on the spike weeks, that's 11. If you go all the way down to 6 spike weeks, in other words, 60% success rate, that's only 38 players out of 161 that got rated. The success in fantasy football is a lot lower than people think it is. Those elite guys, like if you're 7 of 10 on spike weeks, you're going to be in my lineup each and every week when you're healthy. After that, it's a mystery who I'm going to play, because looking at this data from a best ball scoring, how often did you hit the best ball scoring sheet and make a significant impact on that team's success? 9 out of 10, 6 guys in the last 10 games. That's the elite of the elite. So, I just look at that and it shocks me. And one of the quarterbacks that is involved, there's only 2 quarterbacks that are in that 9 of the last 10 games over 20 points. Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes. That second name probably surprises a lot of people.
Yep.
But that shows the irregularity that happens with even some of the top players in fantasy football. So you're right, Professor. Having that last decision as close to game time as possible is a really good idea in fantasy football.
I think so.
All right, Professor, let's check another game from the muddy middle. Let's take a look at Denver and the Chargers.
Okay.
Denver and the Chargers.
Okay, that is 11. Okay, let's look at the power ranks first. So,
yes.
Chargers and Denver. Denver's a little low.
Denver's low. Chargers on the other side of that.
Yeah, a little high. So, I think I did pick the Chargers in my pickle. So that's probably not a surprise. My overall impression of Denver is they've got off to a start that wasn't pleasing to them. I think a lot of other pundits thought that they might be a little stronger out of the gate than people may have thought. And that's just my impression. I don't know enough to know that, but that's I thought Denver would be stronger than I think I've seen them this year.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So
it's been across the board because quarterback Bo Nix has not been as good year
That
two.
that's probably the main thing, and I'm probably biased that way. I'm not
Eh,
sure Sutton is any worse or better
nope,
than
nope.
but I think this they were getting Ingram. There was an kind of a euphoria about him that Peyton loves his tight ends and it was going to get better. And they had a good rookie running back, and that was going to fix some issue. I mean, there was a euphoria about them, you know, Knicks last year, and it hadn't really come to fruition yet. It
No,
hadn't
and
gelled yet.
no, and if you look at their offense this year, um, they've been sort of well. They've scored 48 points, but they've given up 41.
Yeah,
So
maybe the
there's
defense
the
is the
defense is
problem.
not as strong either. So
Yeah,
they're both in the middle. They're
yeah.
both in the middle, and Evan Ingram's been, you know,
And he's out. Is he out this week?
he's out this week, so he's
Okay.
been that is a relief to decision makers for fantasy football because he's been unplayable the first 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay. I think Troutman did pretty good. I was
Troutman
looking
did
for a
okay. Yep,
emergency second,
yep.
and I noticed he had got a little play. So I'm not, he's somebody that I considered. Okay. Vegas 25 for the Chargers, 20 for Denver, 2.5 points, 46. As far as the odds, Chargers 45 and a half, 3. So nothing really this whole week, nothing's really changed a lot to where we would think, oh, it's crazy. Nothing really has changed a lot. Denver against the Chargers. Chargers overall tough, but they're tough, really tough against. And good thing Ingram's not playing. And I probably didn't pick up Troutman because of this. I went elsewhere on my waiver wires, but extra tough. And I wouldn't play the Denver D or the kicker. Wide receivers, Sutton, I'm probably playing. They're above average. And the running back, if I need, who is the Harvey?
J.K.
Is he
Dobbins,
Dobbins?
Harvey
I'm
Nicks.
probably playing
Yeah,
Dobbins too, even with this. But and I don't know this, but I always think in my head if a team gets too far behind, do they abandon the run? You've heard that, but I
yes.
don't know if I've seen any studies that say that or confirm that. That's another question. You've heard that, Dennis.
Oh
And
yeah,
so if you can predict, and if that's really true, then you can think about what the DAPs are saying and maybe add a little bit to the pass catching running back or more of the wide receivers if a team figures to be out of it earlier. I don't know that. I don't know the answer, folks. I just know that's what people quote say. uh Chargers should have their way with rushing and the quarterback. I mean, nothing scares me on the Chargers. I mean, there's nothing that I think is a two touchdown game kind of. Their wide receivers, I think they have McConkey and Allen and Quentin Johnson is. I think they're splitting, and I wouldn't surprise me they
yes.
get two of the three get it, kind of like the Buffalo situation. Two of the three get action. I mean, I think Keenan Allen's worth a flex. I think McConkey's worth a flex. So I'm not running. I think Herbert's worth a play, in a stream situation. Nothing scaring me. And the Chargers, I think there's been some issues with the Chargers running backs, right? Hasn't Hampton been underwhelming? Is that
Yeah,
Hampton?
yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a split of touches, so
Mhm.
it's been hard to read. And
Hampton
here's one that
53. Yeah.
so Hampton fumbled the ball at the end
Ah,
of Monday Night Football. He didn't get credit for that fumble. They gave it to Herbert on the handoff instead. Cost me a
How,
win in a dynasty
how
league.
does that? How did they do that, Dennis? See, I
I
don't
have
know enough on
it
refereeing. How,
it
how is
it
it? Are you saying it's variable?
it's variable. It's just like in baseball, deciding between a hit and an error. Sometimes who gets that fumble is hard to decipher. At the time, they gave it to Hampton,
Mm-hmm.
and so I won my matchup by a point and a half.
Mm-hmm.
After the game,
They
they took
changed
it
it.
away from Hampton and gave it to Herbert, and that
That
cost
sucks.
me to lose by less than a half a point.
That sucky
It
sucks.
was a tough one. Thankfully, I didn't lose on another league where I had Herbert in the starting lineup because of adding the fumble, but it just shows you how sometimes things are so close. But but they felt that Hampton didn't do a good job because he didn't get the ball the rest of the game. So
Gotcha.
how will they react this week is anybody's guess, and that's been the biggest problem with the Chargers on offense. On the Denver offense, the biggest problem has been the emergence of Troy Franklin and Mims and Cortland Sutton now splitting. You just don't know what you're going to get out of those three going forward. And on the running back side for Denver, if it's gotten into a passing situation, it hasn't been Harvey or Dobbins, it's been Tyler Beatty. And he's unstartable because he just doesn't get enough uh, volume, but he's taken up the space in the backfield on passing downs, and they're not using
Yeah.
the running
Well, the
backs
the
very often.
Chargers are home field. Uh,
Yes.
their early efficiency this year, both teams are down from last year, so
Wow.
that's not good. Home
No.
away splits. Chargers love to be at home, and they tend to pass more than run. 9% less running than at home. Denver uh, rushes less than in away games. Nothing is really scaring me other than Denver loves home 22% better.
Yep. Yep.
So they're declining that way, Denver. So I picked the Chargers for some of those reasons that you've said and some of what the metrics are saying, Dennis. That's about all I got to say on that.
Yeah, I like the Chargers here. I also like the under. I think both teams have not been overwhelming with their offense. The Chargers been able to do a lot in the passing game. Herbert's been kind of unleashed a little bit, but the problem is Lad McConkey, Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson all splitting the volume. But all three are good starts this week against Denver. I think Herbert's going to throw. I think that is the new. They're unleashing Herbert. It's been fun to watch as someone who has lots of Justin Herbert in dynasty leagues. But as far as the Denver running backs and the Chargers running backs, man, I hope I have other places with more certainty. Let's look at one more game before we wrap it up.
Okay.
Let's look at Kansas City.
What?
You knew I had to get the Kansas City in.
What?
Kansas City and the New York Giants.
Well, I see right away Kansas City is heavily favored. Let's see what the thing says. Kansas City's there, and where are the Giants at?
Giants
Can't.
not too far behind them.
Well, so it's
They're pretty
Dennis.
close.
It's
They're
a
very
coin
close.
flip. Coin flip on
They're
that.
close.
Vegas says it's not that close. So I did. There's no way that I'm three in a row from Dennis. I'm picking Kansas City. I haven't even looked at the daps. I just, I'll be the sucker that goes along with. Now, I didn't say I knew how Kansas City might win. It might be an ugly game, but it's hard for me to imagine that. -6, so Vegas says it's a touchdown difference. The Giants, didn't Wilson wake up last week? I don't know what, right? Was that
Oh yeah. Yeah, he was throwing the moon balls
what
and
the
Neighbors
hell?
was making great plays and
What the hell?
so was Robinson. They got a
Crazy.
lot of offense last week.
Well, and they're at home too. So Kansas City's an away favorite by a touchdown. Wow, it's aggressive. Kansas City should have Pacheco. Look, Dennis, if Pacheco don't do it now, I would just
Worry
boy,
time.
yeah, I'm playing him in the flex, but not in every place because I may have some what I perceive as better. But this is the best I've seen him. The only thing better for Pacheco if this was at home.
Yes.
If it was at home, I would put him in my regular RB. But now, um, I think on my draft night out team, I hadn't really set my lineup, and you reminded me that I should probably consider Pacheco. So, uh, Kelsey gonna have to earn his biscuits again. I mean,
Yep.
he's getting cranky, getting the old man crankiness here a little bit, Dennis. I don't want his head to explode, but if they lose this game,
Oof.
he might just take that private jet and say, "See ya." You know, lick his wounds in the Caribbean with his fiance. I don't know. Kansas City's D though, Dennis. I'm playing because I think Wilson could turn it over. But if you're throwing and throwing and throwing, uh, look at the RB DAP.
Yes.
See, the script would say the Moonball version 2 better be there because that's what's favored. And the tight end. So if I was playing daily fantasy sport, that Theo Johnson or whoever, I don't, is he still on their team?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, he might be a surprise tournament play, a tricky play, or maybe an in-game play on a parlay. Throw him in the mix for some catches or an any down touchdown, even if you want to get aggressive. I wouldn't play the kicker or the D, but it looks like if Wilson can do what he did last week, Kansas City is going to have to rough and tough. I will say KC's efficiency, I know you're not shocked, 43% down
It's been ugly.
in their efficiency, Dennis.
Been ugly.
Giants 11% to the good. Of course, they were like almost bottom last, so it's not surprising. It's hard to get worse than the bottom, Dennis. So by that measurement, they have improved. The Giants are home, Kansas City away. Giants at home are not as efficient as away, at least they were last year, and they like to pass a little more, and that's exactly, what the Daps are giving them. KC away uh, wants to uh, rush less and pass less. They love. They've tended to not do as good because their defense last year was able to
Yes.
crush their opponent. And if Wilson can stay on top over the defense, Dennis, my pick on it could be a little rougher here than I think, Dennis. So I'm gonna let you tell us about the KC situation.
Yeah. So money line, I'm playing Casey all day in this one. Um, but 6 points. Well, I have a hard time laying six on the road with Kansas City because they just even last year they didn't like to beat teams by more than a field goal that they should have beaten. So I'm looking at this game and I'm saying I like the under bet on this one. And if you force me to make a pick, I'll take Kansas City and spot the six, but I probably am not going to be playing that one. As far as players in this one, this is Pacheco's last chance to show that he can actually do something. this year. I'm a little concerned. I've been hedging my bets with some Kareem Hunt and even some Clyde Edwards-Helaire in Dynasty because I think there's a possibility that we're not seeing Pacheco back to his best this year. That's the sad possibility. Worthy is going to be out in here, and I think that the Chiefs are going to try to go deep again. They've been getting good pass protection. The Giants not been putting a good rush on teams, as we saw last week with Dallas being able to take them on. So if you're in desperate need at wide receiver, I actually like Tyquan Thornton in this one as a deep flex play for the Kansas City Chiefs at wide receiver. As far as the Giants go, man, I'm putting Neighbors out there. Johnson had 4 catches last week at tight end, so he had 7 points in a non-tight end PPR, and that was without a touchdown. So Theo Johnson's a good play here for the Giants. And other than that, folks, I just don't think this is going to be a juicy enough scoring game to get really excited about my players. Obviously, you're playing Mahomes if you drafted him.
What about Scatterboo versus Tracy? I got Scatterboo ahead just a tad. I got him 50-50 on the shots, and I'm not happy about either one. If I've got to play, I'm leaning to Scatterboo, but I'm trying not to play either.
Yeah, I would think that's good advice. Tracy came into the week questionable. So I think Scatterboo is going to get a little bit more run here.
If Tracy's out, who's the next guy up?
It would be Singletary would be the guy that would be the last man standing in that backfield. But Tracy came off with a questionable tag.
But I was just thinking about down the road.
Oh, it's whenever you got a guy showing up on the questionable tag early in the week. Yeah, early in week 3. That's a
it
reason
looks
for
like
concern.
The Neighbors show, like you say.
Yes.
I agree.
Neighbors and spot starting Johnson if you need a replacement.
Yeah, if you've got Kittle, there's others that I'm playing over, but he was in my mix as well as Troutman. But I looked at the DAPs, and I think I had Tongas and Otten or some of the ones I was able to get, and Schultz. I think those 3 in different combinations for $1. I was determined not to spend any money on Kittle teams, if I could help it. But in some, Dennis, I've actually drafted 2 of those 3 to try to horse in and out until I can find. I'm just looking for 10 points is what I'm doing. I'm not going to, I'm finding the touchdown each week. If you can find, Dennis, the tight end touchdown each week, you don't need to be listening to us. We need to be listening to you, and we all need to be in Vegas laying that money down, because that is one of the hardest positions. I mean, touchdowns are crazy, and if you claim that you're the tight end whisperer and find that touchdown, goodness, you must know something. You need to educate me. And Dennis will stay up all damn night and with his 20 cups of coffee and look like that listening to you. That's what he looks like if you truly are the tight end whisperer. He'll stay all night listening to you.
Yeah, I felt really good about Dalton Kincaid getting in the end zone this week, but rarely
we did talk about that.
We did talk about that. Rarely do I get excited about being able to predict a tight end touchdown. It just doesn't.
Remember when we had Kelsey and we would debate, is he going to get 1 or 2 this week? Or Gronk, is he going to get 1 or 2? And
those were the good old days, man. Those were the good old days.
And I remember, Jimmy Graham, and
Dallas Clark.
And Dallas Clark. And
Tony Gonzalez.
Rudolph. Remember Rudolph?
The
touchdown reindeer. I used to sing that around Christmas. I would run around the house, and my family thought I was nuts here. It's the tight end reindeer. And, had my Saints cowbell with my Saints suit on running around. I don't know why. I like Kyle Rudolph. I
And
like tight ends. I've always liked
yep.
tight ends.
And I
So,
wish I had drafted more of Jawan Johnson this year. That's
yes,
my
I
one of my
have
few
got
regrets.
him on. Bowers was last week. Bowers was injured type or what, and so I got him for nothing, Dennis. Just
I
off the waivers.
I drafted a lot of him in best ball, but I did not follow up in redraft this year, and I'm
I
hurting
tell you
on that.
what, you need to look at that. We probably do need to look at the roster on our best ball and compare to the roster on our
Oh,
leagues because
good study.
we need to why did we do that? We need to why did we do that? Why did we make that mistake? What were we thinking? What happened? We were so dialed in best ball, and all that kind of rotted away. Our minds had rotted away in the draft. What did we do, Dennis? I don't remember what I
I
did.
I think the biggest difference was with tight end in best ball this year. I
Mm-hmm,
was drafting three on almost every team,
mm-hmm.
and I wasn't going elite. So
Uh,
I was taking three from the group of guys like Tyler Warren,
yeah.
Brenton Strange, Jawan Johnson,
Mm-hmm,
Theo Johnson, guys that were going much later in the draft, and I was taking three of
mm-hmm,
them versus redraft. I never take three tight
mm-hmm,
ends, or very seldom anyway.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, and the weird thing is that in redraft in the past years, I've ended the season with three tight ends because FPPC is tight end premium scoring. And sometimes rather than grabbing an ordinary wide receiver, I'll take a tight end with an opportunity to hit the board. And I've ended up with three of them at the end of the season, playing two every week. But it's very rare. But yeah, I think that's the biggest difference. But I made a note of that, Professor, because this year, every week when we have these ideas that pop up,
Mm-hmm.
it's future study
Mm-hmm.
for next off season. So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. Check out a couple of articles that I wrote this week.
Good
Uh,
articles.
look at who the leaders of the pack are and check out that all 32 because it gives you an
All 32.
understanding of how teams are playing. And of course, check out the professor's data. That'll be up there for you to put to work. Head on over to the sports affiliation and check out our sister podcast, the Matchup Lab. And come on back here next week for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.
That is a good idea and a study, Professor.
Yeah, what did we do? Why did we do that?
Where did we?
Where did we go wrong?
Because this idea
Yeah.
of some players are better in best ball than in
Is that
redraft,
really true?
I don't think it
We've
is.
never tested it.
I don't think it is. I think what it is some players,
I know are spiky or
what?
not, and maybe
Yeah,
that tricks, but overall, and again, I want to look at the average landscape and ask that question.
this spike week comparison that I'm doing
I'm
is
looking
really
forward
it's
to that.
changing my mind on a
Mhm.
lot of things because what it's telling me is don't draft any different,
Mhm.
okay?
Yeah.
Because that's what matchups are for every week.
Yeah.
Like the matchups are where you'll decide who's going to be in, who's going to be out of the lineup.
Yeah.
Give yourself enough shots at a spike week.
Yeah.
And this whole thing of seeing how infrequent it is for
Yeah.
players to hit 15 points.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got to catch up on that, Dennis. If you'll remind me, and I sent you the database too, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I wanted you to add the MVP or the spike data or whatever you want to
Oh,
start adding
yeah.
to that database. I
I'm gonna
think,
add MVP and spike weeks.
yeah, I
I
think
think those are the two data pieces
But
that
we can really tease a lot out of that with age,
oh
experience, and some other things. I think you'll really enjoy what we can dig out of that.
yeah, and I think there's going to be ways of what I think we're going to end up seeing, and this is one of my predictions for the future on this spike week stuff. I think we're going to see among teams
Mm-hmm.
that at the team level that it's going to be a useful tool
Is it the most spikiest team?
to
Spike
to
index?
yeah to pick what I'm saying is if your spike weeks are all 4 to 6,
Mm-hmm.
over the last 10 games,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be hard to figure out who that hot wide receiver is versus some teams, the difference will be 7 to 1 or
Right.
7 to 2.
Right.
Those are the teams where I want to spend more time early rounds next year.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the AJ Brown, Devonta Smith thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a great second wide receiver on the team,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not so sure I want the primary guy in the first round or the early second. Like I want to
You
go
almost talk
shopping.
about anti-stacking at early, with
Correct.
with early draft capital
Unless both guys
or
hit
cheap,
spike weeks at a high level. Like if they're
or
all
maybe
over
they're
7,
cheap.
yes, or they're cheap. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this whole WR2 theory thing, there's a reason. Like the theory is the WR2 on a team outperforms his ADP on a more regular basis.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true. But can we figure out how to use that information to
Yeah.
avoid the WR1 on that team?
Yeah.
Because in my way of thinking, there's only like 6 WR2s that are really must start guys, like Devontae Adams, Higgins, Devonta Smith. Those are the 3 must start guys as tight end or as WR2s. The rest are more of a muddy. There isn't a 1 and 2. It's more of a 1 and
You
1A.
know who is working their way to that is old Keenan Allen. If he keeps on,
Oh man, he's
he's
been
gonna
good.
be a
Yes.
bargain at the end of the season. I
You
didn't
know,
draft enough of him.
I drafted a ton of him
Good for
in
you.
a lot of leagues, and in best ball again, I got more of them in best ball than I do in redraft.
Yeah.
And some of that was just because he was a speculation pick.
Right.
And then as soon as he landed on the Chargers, he went up. Like
Yeah.
his ADP changed so dramatically that I wasn't getting as much of him. I do have a pretty good exposure in redraft on FPPC, though. I've got him on about 4 of my 18 teams. So that's not
That's not bad.
bad.
Yeah.
But boy,
But I'm greedy.
I want them all, man.
Yeah.
And in best ball for a while there, and I didn't do as many best ball leagues this year, except on underdog and drafters where I had money to spend,
Yeah.
from last year. I'm like,
Right.
do I take the money out and quit playing over there? Or do I use these to learn? I'm going to use them to learn. And so on those, I ended up with, I think in underdog, I think I have 70% exposure to Keenan Allen.
Yeah.
So
I,
I'm just cleaning
I
up
I
over
didn't
there.
do best ball because of all the
The
draft prep,
posters.
the
Yeah.
posters. Yeah,
Yeah.
I had planned in July to do some best ball, but
Yep.
once the posters, but this year, Dennis, I'm gonna be ahead of that. I'm gonna
Yeah.
have, like I said, I'm gonna have too many ideas.
Oh God. Yeah. The thing is we're probably going to start developing posters before the NFL playoffs are
Yeah,
over,
I
you
will.
know,
I will. I will.
and that's, data study ideas and
Yeah, there's
crunching.
still
We're going to be so far ahead of
yep.
schedule this year. It's going to
It's
be
going to be
wonderful.
fun now we're done. I'm going to stop recording so we can go ahead and shift, divide this when I do the
Sure.
upload. So
Yep.
let me stop recording.